With Rome threatened on all sides, with no men to fill the ranks, reforms need to be made. In the year 113 BC, with the Germanic tribes of the Cimbri and the Teutons on the northern border invading, Consul Papyrus Carbo was sent to defeat this horde, but he himself being defeated, losing an entire legion. Meanwhile in Africa, an equally dangerous threat was being posed. Consul Metellus Numidicus was sent to defeat the Numidian king Jugurtha due to his usurpation of the Numidian throne, which was an ally of Rome. Although Numidicus never lost an army, this protracted war was a tremendous drain on the Roman manpower. With the end of the war nowhere in sight, a legate of Numidicus requested leave in 108 BC to return to Rome and run for consul. Having succeeded in his task and becoming junior consul in 107 BC, the former legate Marius was now appointed with the task of concluding the Jugurthine War. Although eager and a competent general, he had no army, unable to recruit any soldiers due to the massively depleted manpower reserve, with all men being sent directly to halt the Germanic invasion in the north. To overcome the problem that he was now faced with, Marius began to enact a series of sweeping reforms. The foremost of the reforms enacted by Marius was the inclusion of the Roman landless citizens known as the Capiti Censi into the census. With this change, now all Roman citizens were counted by the head instead of their property. This would allow the formerly excluded citizens from joining the army. Although now having the manpower, they were unequipped and untrained. Marius' next task was for the state to provide arms and training. With this achieved, Marius now offered the masses permanent employment as professional soldiers with an enlistment for 20 years. The second important reform implemented by Marius was the formation of a professional standing army that wouldn't be disbanded at the conclusion of war. He also began to standardize training and equipment through the reformed legions. Drilling and training now took place year-round, not just during preparation for conflict. Reorganizing the structure of a legion, the total number of active fighting men would be 4,800, with an extra 1,200 being non-combatants. The non-combatants would be operating the baggage train and attending to the legionaries. The internal organization of a legion consisting of 10 cohorts of 6 centuries, each century consisting of 100 men with 20 being non-combatants. Each century would be marching, fighting and camping together as a unit. The third major reform that was introduced was the legislation that offered retirement benefits in form of land grants to retiring soldiers. Men of the head count would be given a pension by their commanding general and a plot of land on conquered territory on which to retire. Retiring former Roman soldiers on conquered territory would stamp Roman control on recently occupied land and help spread Roman culture. The final reform, and arguably the most important to create the future Roman Empire, was to grant full Roman citizenship to Italian allies that fought for Rome. When they completed a full period of service of 20 years, they'd be granted Roman citizenship. This would lead to the military and the Republic as not just being Roman, but being Italian. The first and most obvious result of the Marian Reforms was the increased military capability of the Roman army. When war was threatened, a consul would no longer be forced to hastily organize a military response from scratch. Having to recruit and train an army to fight and obey military command was a major task. Although with all the benefits that Marius introduced, these reforms also turned the loyalty of the common soldier away from the Roman state and more towards the generals they served. It became increasingly common for commanding generals to prolong their command by using the force under his command to intimidate the Senate and consolidate his own power. Some generals even went as far as declaring war on their political enemies. This would lead to a civil war, such as Sulla. Ultimately, these reforms saved the Republic for a time by strengthening its military, but this also led to the transformation into the Roman Empire, with the consolidation of power into one man,